Matthew Lovegood grew up in what they describe as a religious bubble in North Carolina.
My church was super fundamentalist, very, you know, literal interpretation of the Bible, very patriarchal, very strict. So I did not become a drag queen until I was nearly 40. I spent a long time avoiding this fate right here.
Lovegood, now out as non-binary and gay, learned early not to explore gender.
I definitely got the message from a really early age that this is not how a boy behaves. This is not how a boy dresses. You need to fit in better with the other boys.
Lovegood became a worship pastor, and in their late 20s moved to San Diego to start a new church. During that time, they began to question what they'd been taught and embrace that they were gay.
So when I did, I got kicked out of that church. It was very hard.
Lovegood says it was through doing drag that they ultimately decided to stay in the Christian church.
When I started doing drag, it was inner child work for me. Sitting in my bedroom, painting my face, and talking to that younger version of myself and saying, okay, for years, for your whole life, for 30 years, you've carried this belief that something about you is broken and wrong and sinful and unworthy and unlovable. And what we're gonna do now is let that kid know, you're okay, baby. Giving yourself the permission to believe in your own goodness.
A pastor friend invited them to give a sermon as their drag queen persona, Flamy Grant. Their practice video went viral on TikTok.
Well, I can't wait to see what you make of your second act.
I spent the entire day just scrolling through comments of people saying, this makes me feel seen and makes me feel safe, which is what drag was doing for me, making me feel seen. It was the first time I had an inclination that my drag was not just for me, it was for other people too.
Lovegood saw there was a role for them to play in Christianity.
I feel like it's important for some people to take up space in the church when there's no representation for the thing that you're doing.
Then, in July, Flamy Grant posed for a photo with several well-known Christian musicians from the 90s.
Somehow that photo got to Sean Foyt, who is a conservative worship leader.
Foyt took to Twitter.
This is the end goal of deconstruction. Derek Webb, a former Christian musician, collaborating with a drag queen. It's truly the last days. And I just replied back, end goal, baby, no. We're just getting started. He came back and said, well, good thing that hardly anyone listens to you or cares what you do, which is not a thing you say to a drag queen. You just don't, because if there's one thing that drag performers everywhere have in common, is that we know how to capitalize on a moment. You know, we know how to take something that is intended for our harm and turn it into our good.
Lovegood asked their TikTok followers to propel their nearly year-old album, Bible Belt Baby, onto the iTunes Christian music charts.
I rolled the dice, knowing what I know about the queer community. That was a good bet.
The album hit #1 shortly after. Flamy Grant was soon in the headlines of Rolling Stone, Billboard, and Paste magazine.
There are a lot of people looking at this moment and how I'm behaving, and I want them to see that there is such a good life for you after you leave high-demand toxic religion. You don't have to leave your entire faith structure. You can stick around and just do it better.
In a couple weeks, Lovegood and their husband plan to move back to North Carolina.
I'm still a Southern kid at heart, and I feel like my drag will fit well in the South. I want to make an impact where laws are literally being passed against queer people, trans people.
In one of their last local performances, Lovegood performed a song from Flamy to young Matthew.
There were years we spent apart. I have always been the desire of your heart.
Katie Hyson, KPBS News.